Hello, YouTubers. I've completely given up on Instagram Live or videos or whatever because they cut you off. So I started just using my YouTube account, and I'll put a link in the Instagram link tree at the top of my profile. It's Metal Monday. It's the Metal Monday, or I guess it's almost the Metal Monday. So those of you who have been following along on Instagram know that Perry and I both, and Perry's not here today, but Perry and I both raced Ironman Canada last weekend. So it's been 8 days. It's Monday today, the September 2nd. And that, I have to tell you the story of this race because I'm in awe, complete awe of how this whole thing has transpired. So when I was a competitive swimmer as a kid, and I was raised up in a family of pretty fit parents. My biological dad played university level hockey. He was an amazing hockey player. My mom was an amazing runner and ran Boston, and my stepdad was a runner also and played all kinds of sports and coached all kinds of things and did Ironman in 1991. And I remember this very vividly because, first of all, because he invited me to come along beforehand. So I got to go 2 weeks out early and scout the whole thing. And it was himself and a friend of his that trained together, and they did the race together. And he had a son, maybe a couple of years older than me. And so we hung out. I was about 12 at that time. And we went camping and whatever in the Okanagan. And then I watched the race. And I had never done a triathlon before, and I had been to a triathlon, like we had Great White North back then, and I remember Heather Fuhr, my dad and mom coached her in track, and so we knew Heather Fuhr, and she ended up becoming a pro, and Rock Fry, who she ended up marrying, was my swim coach, and so triathlon was like in my world, kind of, sort of, but I had never done a triathlon or anything like that. And anyway, so we're out in Penticton. It's 1991. It's race day. I watched it. My mom comes and a bunch of other friends, and we watched the race. And I remember so vividly that day. Like it's one of my strongest childhood memories of this event. And I remember saying to myself at 12, I'm going to do this one day. And, fast. And then I showed a real interest. I was a competitive swimmer. And so that part was already done, and my parents had me in running since I was like 3, so running was already kind of underway. But after I showed some real interest, Roy, my stepdad, bought me a road bike, and I got out road biking. And the following spring, I did a triathlon, Kids of Steel, and it was a pool swim. I don't remember the distances; they're short. Pool swim, little bike, little run. It was probably a 10K bike and a 3K run, and anyway, I won that race, and it was a close race. It was between me and these 2 twin girls from St. Albert who were also competitive swimmers and very fit. And they were running me down, and I wasn't letting them. And I remember really vividly, I had to go to the bathroom on the run, go pee, and I didn't want to stop because they were really close. So I just ended up peeing myself. Little did I know that this always happens in triathlon. I was horrified at my 13-year-old age, but whatever. I won the race. And you would think that would have been kind of like the beginning of my triathlon journey, and I just took off from there. But that is not what happened. Those twin girls actually went on to become really amazing triathletes, ended up on the national team. That was I was one and done, and not because I didn't love it, but because I found other interests. I was 13 and I found volleyball and boys, and I still biked. I was in the mountain biking club and stuff like that, and I still swam and I still ran, but I didn't do another triathlon. Fast forward to 2009. I had Kefra and my son in 2008, and I had a really hard time with pregnancy because I had a high risk pregnancy, and I was basically on bed rest from month 4. And I had been very active before that and working out every day, and so being on bed rest just about made me insane. So as soon as I had him and I had a C-section, I was trying to return to play, return to running, return to skiing, return to biking. Too soon, actually. And I ended up delaying my recovery process from the C-section, and anyway, whatever. So I did persevere though, and I ended up doing a women's only, which is now, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was out here in Spruce Grove, and Element, Elise from Element used to organize it and put it on. A women's only sprint triathlon in Spruce Grove here, and I did that like maybe 5 months postpartum, and it was great. And then my friend Tess lives out in the Okanagan, and her husband invited me out there to do the Oliver Olympic Triathlon. So I went out there to do that. And I mean, I think I did the bike on a gravel bike because we lived out in the country. So that's the fastest bike I had at the time. I ran like I think I've talked about my time on there before. I biked at like, I don't know, 26 kilometers an hour. And I ran at like maybe a 54-minute 10K or something like that. I was one of the first people out of the water, though. I had a really good swim. Anyway, so then I was continuing to want to train, and I started to have a runner's knee problem. And I went for about a year to like anybody that would see me, chiro, physio, massage, doctor, kind of tried to keep looking for answers about how can I run with this injury, and ended up going all the way up to see a sports medicine doctor who said, you cannot run. Like, you're not designed for running, you're not built for running. Was born with hip dysplasia, so my hips are internally rotated. If you run, you're gonna wreck your knees. You have a little one, you're not gonna be able to even like chase him around. And so you need to stop, or you're gonna end up with knee replacement / hip replacements. So I listened, and I completely stopped running, and I really like kind of focused more on biking, and I ended up buying a road bike, and I still had a mountain bike, and I still had a gravel bike. I had all the bikes. I've always liked biking, and continued on, and I was in a bit of a weight loss journey battle with my postpartum body, and it took me a couple of years to get that all sorted out. But anyway, long story short, I ended up getting divorced and remarried, or repartnered, eventually remarried, and to Perry. And I introduced Perry to road biking pretty early on in our relationship. I like borrowed a road bike and borrowed some stuff, and off we went. And he didn't take to it on the first day, mostly because I kicked his butt, and he didn't like that. But he kind of went in secret 2 or 3 times, and by the next time we went out, he was about as good as me, and by the next time we went out, he was faster than me. And so he kind of took to it really naturally, and we started to go out more and more and more, and that's something that we really enjoyed doing together. This is like 2014, 2015, and that kind of continued, and we were starting to track our stuff on like Map My Ride and see how fast we were going and those kinds of things. And this is before Strava. Anywho, we ended up getting into bike racing, and that was so fun. I was just actually doing some filing and reflecting on, I had a bike coach like before COVID. My goal was to like win the road race nationals for my age group. Like, I was like serious about road biking. And then COVID took that all away, and we had like a cycling camp to Mallorca canceled. And so when COVID happened, Perry built a little garage little gym in our garage, and we went out there every day, and we started doing cross training and boxing and motorcycling and et cetera, et cetera. And eventually we moved here into this house, and he put down all fitness and went head on into renovation. And renovation is not my jam at all. And we moved right into a neighborhood that is very close to the forest, Purchase Park trails. And I heard this podcast about runner's knee and rehabbing runner's knee with barefoot walking / running. And I was like, I'm going to try that. So I kind of did some research. I started barefoot walking in June of 2021. Barefoot walking. I did that and it really, at first I had like sore Achilles and sore feet. And then a friend of mine sent me this website about foot rehab and all these exercises. So I was doing that. And anyway, eventually I started kind of jogging, and I went for like a 3K run in like July of 2021, barefoot. And then I was in my backyard, and I was doing some yard work, picking apples or whatever. And I had this like vision of me competing in Kona, which is the Ironman World Championships. So 3K run that I hadn't run in 13 years. I've done 3 triathlons in my life, and I have this vision of competing in Kona. So for whatever reason, I agree to this vision. And I even tell people. I like told my friend Sean, and I told my parents. My parents laughed at me. Sean believed me. I got a shout out to you, Sean. He was like, yeah, I could see that. I was like, yes. Anyway, so I just started, I joined the swim fit group. The cycling was kind of underway. Didn't need to do much there except for eventually track down a tri bike. I started running more and more running, leveling up. I had to figure out how to run in shoes. So I got into like 0-drop shoes and all this stuff. And it all was going okay. This is kind of when I started these videos. I got injured fairly soon. I like had a stress fracture in my foot because I ramped up too much too soon. Now I know that's what happens. Anyway, at some point I decided I should get a coach because I don't know what the heck's going on. So I asked around and I got a referral to Kevin Masters. Shout out to Kevin. I did some looking up. Kevin has been to Kona. Kevin is an animal triathlete and cyclist and all of the things. And so I decided he was probably a good fit for me. And sure enough, we started working together in December of 2021. So about, this fall it'd be about 3 years since all this started. And I won't tell you about too much about the last 3 years because if you've been following along this journey, you know what I've been up to. But I competed in several more triathlons. I ended up I told Kevin right off the bat that my goal was to do an Ironman and qualify for Kona. And he said, have you ever run a marathon? And I was like, no, only a half, which I had done in like my early 20s. He's like, well, we should start with that. So I ran the Vancouver Marathon to qualify for Boston. I was like, well, you got to go to Boston. That's a pretty cool experience. My mom had gone, blah, blah, blah. And then I got Perry going on the marathon train, and now he wants to run the majors with me. So then we did London, and so this marathon thing has taken on a life of its own. I did my first half Ironman in 2022 in Calgary, qualified for Worlds, my first shot in Finland. So of course I had to go to that. So that was last year. So the Ironman thing got pushed out for 1 year. I figured the Ironman goal was going to take me 2 years, and it took me an extra year because we did the Boston, we did the Finland. Anyway, so I finally get to do Ironman Canada 3 years after I set out to do so. And I was very nervous going into this race. Like 3 weeks out, I'm not sleeping. I've never experienced race nerves like this. And I had a therapy session. I was like talking to my friends and family. I was like, what's wrong with me? And a couple things. Like, first of all, like, you've been training for this for 3 years. Like, this is like your Olympics, right? And then you get one shot at it is what I was telling myself. That's a lot of pressure. But it was like the race. Penticton's is the last year it's ever going to happen. Literally. So I'm like, oh God, please let it happen. Like, because last year got canceled with fires and smoke. Please let me be healthy and get to the start line. Like, this is the race I wanted to always do. So it needs to be this one. So there was all this worry about, was it even going to happen? Was I going to do okay? Was I going to do well? I've never done an Ironman. I've only done half. Like, what the hell is I going to, how do you run a marathon after 180K bike? Like, this is insane. Right. And so I started to really like question my readiness and how I hired up a nutritionist and made a nutrition plan. Like, I was trying everything. But the interesting piece about all of that is what it really came down to, what I was really worried about is, what if it does go well? Because if it goes well and I do what I think I can do, I'm going to qualify for Kona. This is going to happen. And I think there's this really, Stephen Pressfield writes about it in The Art of what is it? The Art of War? Basically, like, that he's a creator, he's an author, and he's talking about like when there's as much resistance to succeeding as there is to, like, not doing it, right? And so I was afraid of succeeding, because what would that mean? I would have to do a whole nother year of Ironman. I would have to commit to going to Kona, and that's very expensive, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, and what is that going to do to my marriage? It's already been hard on my marriage, honestly. Triathlon is hard on the marriage. So I was like, so I finally like very vulnerably had this conversation with Perry about like, I'm really worried this is going to happen. And he really reassured me that he fully, in many ways, expected it to happen because he's been alongside me on this journey, and he's like seeing how well the build went, and he's like, yeah, you got a really good shot, and if that happens for you, like, I'll walk you up to the desk and slam the visa down with you. Like, I'm on your team. We'll get there together. So that really reassured me that if, you know, I could let go of the expectation and just like really enjoy the day. So, and then we went together and we had this great week in Penticton, and we really loved our time, and everything went really good that week. Like, we had a really nice place to stay, and it just went really well. But anyway, race morning, we show up in transition, and at the check-in, they had talked about like the race temperature. The lake temperature is 22 degrees, so it's kind of like perfect, and you can wear a wetsuit and it's all fine, and blah, blah, blah. And we show up on race morning, and they're talking about some announcers saying, oh, you can wear booties. And I'm thinking, that's not good. That means really cold water. Like, how'd that happen? And then I started hearing like talk in the transition area about the lake flipped because of the storm the day before, and it's going to be a shortened swim. And so already Perry and I are shaking our heads thinking this isn't a full Ironman. And then we hear that the swim is totally canceled. Like, canceled. So the race was delayed almost 2 hours, the race start. We were supposed to leave at 6:30, and we left closer to 8:25 in the morning. Time trial start in waves, pairs of 2 every 5 seconds, according to our race number. So it was a totally weird, wacky, wonky Ironman. So I am an Ironman. I did finish, but I'm an almost Ironman with an asterisk. So here's my medal, which is what I came on here to show you and talk about. Medal Monday. Perry got one too, and he's going to black out his swim like that. I refuse to. I don't want to desecrate the medal. But anyway, got my medal. I had an amazing day. So I was really intimidated by this bike course. We had driven the bike course, and I knew it's like the third hardest bike course on the circuit, Ironman circuit, according to elevation, all this stuff. And my time trial bike's really heavy, and I questioned bringing it, and should I bring my road bike, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, first 60K are like rolling hills, but like almost even downhill to Osoyoos. And then you kind of like turn the corner and you go straight up Richter Pass, and then it's like up Yellow Lakes Pass and more hills and crazy hills for the next till 30K to go, and then it's mostly downhill again, but lots of burly big hills. So we start going up Richters, and I am flying up Richters. I'm not overriding, my heart rate's normal, like I'm just like cruising by everybody, and I'm like, oh, this is actually okay, this is gonna be okay, because I'm fairly light, so like my watts per kilo are pretty high on hills. So I get up to the top of Richter's Pass, and everybody's like, well, that's it. I'm like, well, that's it. So I'm like, oh, it must get way harder. So down we go, and then there's these rollers, and like then we're climbing up to Yellow Lake. Like, I'm waiting for my legs to start to like complain, and they just don't. I just don't ever get there. I'm riding what I'm supposed to ride for power. You know, I have written right on my water bottle, save it for the run. This is all about the run. Just be patient. So I've eaten all my things. Like, everything went perfectly according to plan. Perfect. Couldn't have gone better. Get off the bike. As soon as you start running, there's this like hill like this, and people were all like, walk up the hill. And for whatever reason, I did not walk up the hill. I ran up the hill, and then proceeded it goes for like another 3K on like a gravel rail trail, gravel path uphill to 5K, and then it's downhill for 5K, and then you're into town for the last 32K. So I start visiting with somebody on the gravel trail, and I'm eating my gel and drink my drink, and everything's good. And I get to the turnaround. I was supposed to be running 5:45s because I'm hoping to drop that down and be running 5:20s for a 3:45 marathon. That's my goal. I look down at 5K. I've run up the hill at 5s. Oh shit. So I tell that other runner to get lost and go have a good run. I go in the bathroom. I get myself kind of sorted out. I realize I'm pretty hot. So I start this cooling thing. What I did at every aid station is I stopped. I put ice down my bra and like dumped a water over my head, drank a water. I was getting most of my calories. I brought my own drink, and I had some gels with me. So I was getting most of my own calories. I didn't need much of the calories at the aid stations. But anyway, take a couple deep breaths. I'm like, okay, you need to slow down. Like, you still have 37K. So I'm like, okay, but I haven't blown up or anything, but I'm like mad at myself that I've gone out so hard. So anyway, so I'm going down the hill and I'm easing off and I'm easing off and I'm relaxing. One of my feet is like kind of sore from the bike and have a little bit of GI cramps from running downhill, but all manageable. Get down into town, and now I feel like the run has started, right? It's these 2 big loops through town. So off I go, and I just let my kind of heart rate and my legs dictate the pace, and I'm running between 445s and 505s. And I was like, well, this is not the plan, but I feel fine, and my heart rate's like 158, like high zone 3. So I'm like, So I just kind of went with it and stopped at every aid station, which slowed down my pace. So on my watch, my pace was like 510s. And I said, I wanted to run 520. So I was like, well, let's just see what happens. Like, worst case scenario. I said, but I really knew I needed to keep taking my calories. So I was taking my calories, cooling off, taking my calories, cooling off. And I was kind of waiting for me to blow up or hit the wall or whatever. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like nothing hurt. Like, at about 27K into the run, I was like, okay, this kind of hurts. My legs are sore. But I had my brothers who have passed away. I had their names written on my arm. I've never done that before, but I really called them in on this race. And I called in the spirit of the land. And it was this very like spiritual, sacred experience for me. I'd hung prayer ties around the race course and like asked for protection and help from the spirits of the land. And so I had kind of like done this mental prep work. And when my brothers were alive, they were really, 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 really suffering with pain. Both of them, like unimaginable pain. And every time I kind of was like, oh, this hurts, I just would like look down at my arm and I was like, this doesn't hurt. this is not pain. Like, you're fine. That was painful. Like, you could do this. And I just was like, you're right. What am I complaining about? And it just worked. Every time I needed to dig, I just thought of my brothers, and I like had lots to dig. Like, it was just unbelievable. So I wouldn't have been able to do that without witnessing, like, their journey is such a huge part of this journey for me. And it's just an unbelievable testament to like how resilient they were. And I feel like I have access to that because I got to like journey through that with them. So couldn't be more grateful to them. And I was honored to race with their memory and be lifted by their spirits the whole time. So that was really special. And my parents were at the finish line, and my mom saw their names and got very emotional. And I mean, it was a great finish line. My son was there. He's never seen me race before. My parents were there. My cousin was there. It was just really special. Perry, I won't tell you too much about his story. He wrote a great description of it on Facebook, but he had a horrifically bad day where everything went wrong. Literally everything, like, it was not good. He almost ended up in the medical situation. And so he will be racing again in November in Arizona. So I'm really excited to go and support him and Sherpa him there. And in the meantime, I'm in off season. And so I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about off season as a triathlete, because I've literally Googled it like 42 times. How can I do this off season best? What do I need to do? And it's just like, just stop it. Like, I asked my coach for some feedback around what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what do I need to work on? And like, one of the things I need to work on is like chilling out. So this whole month, my goal is to chill out, which, as you can probably tell, is like challenging for me. So my version of chilling out is I'm rereading my training Bible. I read it every year in this time of year and remind myself what the hell is going on and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I found this highlighted section today. Qualifying for the Ironman World Championship in Kona, Hawaii is a huge goal and will demand that nearly everything in your life be aimed at this achievement. I can attest to that because I definitely did qualify for Kona. I won my age group. I came 5th overall for the amateur women. So I will be going to Kona next October. And I have my Kona binder plant started, which was left over from my Finland binder. So I already have some pretty good resources in here, but we'll be planning that trip. So I'm really excited about that. Oh, here's my award. Those are pretty nice. I think they did a really good job. I gotta keep Perry away with this Sharpie so he doesn't take off the swim on my nice prize. And in the meantime, I will be, I organize my office, going back to work, being a volleyball mom, being a triathlon wife, because my husband is training is going cranked up for November 17th. He's got a date in Tempe with a full Ironman instead of an Ironman with an asterisk. What else? That's about it. I wanted to debrief that was basically my debrief of the whole season. It ended really well, unbelievable. I'm a little bit still in shock when I think about what happened and how it all went down. My time was 9:19, which probably a projected time with the swim would be like 10:35, because my swim would have been like a 1:10 5-minute transition sort of thing. So add another hour 15 onto that time. So about 10:35. So pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with that time. I want to get faster. So I'm going to be back at the gym doing strength work. I need to work on my swim. My swim is rusty. Yeah, I think I'll probably run another spring marathon and hopefully drag my marathon time down even more. So I could be pretty unbelievable to run like I ran a 3:36 in Penticton. I'd love to run a 3:30. One of the things that I'm most intimidated by when it comes to Kona, other than the competition, is the heat and humidity and the ocean swim. I've never done an ocean swim before, so that intimidates me. But it's going to be epic. Like I'm just in awe of how this all transpired, and my deepest prayer is that I am able to get to the start line healthy and in one piece and be given the opportunity to race on the day. So may I do everything I need to do that's in my control to get myself into that position, and may the triathlon gods and the Kona gods and all of the gods that are required to shine down upon this dream and this vision, may they be kind on this journey and show me what I need to do to be in reciprocity in order to make this dream come true. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you're a legend. Peace.